Karnika, go ahead.
Namaste and greetings. I, Karnika Arun, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Samsthan, Nai Delhi, extend a warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Learning. We are gathered for the last day of the 3-day online certificate training program on making Indian cities disaster and climate change resilient towards responsive and actionable urban planning, policy, and development. This training program is being organized by the National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, in collaboration with IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development, New Delhi. This 3-day training program has an excellent panel of members who will be sharing their knowledge on the above theme. The patron for the program is Shri Taj Hassan, IPS Executive Director of NIDM, New Delhi. Our conveners include Professor Anil K. Gupta, Head of ECDRM, NIDM, New Delhi. Tikender Singh Panwar, former Deputy Mayor, Shimla, Senior Fellow at IMPRI. Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director, IMPRI, New Delhi. Dr. Saumyadip Chattopadhyay, Associate Professor, Vishwa Bharati Shanti Niketan, Visiting Senior Fellow at IMPRI, New Delhi. The distinguished expert trainers for this program today are Dr. Joy Elemon, Professor K.K. Pandey, Professor V.P. Sati, and Dr. Kopal Verma. This training program is moderated by Shri Tikender Singh Panwar. The coordinators for the program are Dr. Shweta Baidedas, Dr. Kopal Verma, Fatima Amin, and Harshit Sharma, NIDM. Utkarsh Dwivedi, Diya Goswami, Riyasha, and Karnika Arun from IMPRI. Before we start today's session, I would like to remind the housekeeping announcements once again. Join the meeting on time. Ensure at least 80% attendance. 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A after each lecture will be provided. Share your questions on the Q&A box only and not on the chat box. Questions must not be posted as quote-unquote anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments. For starting today's session, we have Ms. Fatima Amin, Young Professional NIDM, for a short presentation. We welcome you, ma'am. Over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me for a short presentation that I'll be making on integrated resilience for Indian cities. Just let me share my screen. Is it like, are you able to see it?
Yes, yes. You can present in the full screen.
So as I want to discuss about the integrated risk management for resilient cities, we all know that urban growth is projected to increase significantly in the upcoming decades. And the world's urban population is expected to double from 3.3 billion to, it was in 3.3 in 2007, and now it's predicted like it had a business scenario that it will be 6.4 billion by 2050. And it's predicted that by 2030, 60% of world's population will live in cities. As we know that there is a lot of migration as people are migrating from rural areas to the urban, whether there is, I guess, there are some push factors or that why they are migrating to cities and some other reasons. So coming to the topic, like I just want to tell you that what is actually a resilience. It's like it's ability of a system, community or society exposed to hazards to resist, absorb, accommodate, adapt to transform and recover from effects of a hazard in a timely and efficient manner, that including through the preservation and restoration of its essential basic structures and functions through risk management. Now, there are some of the elements for resilience framework for STs. Like there are some 4 elements for a resilience framework, and that includes the context, that is some social, that includes social groups, regions and institutions, and about the second element, that's the disturbance, that includes some natural hazards, conflicts, insecurity, some food shortage, high fuel prices, and third is the capacity to deal with disturbances, and fourth is the reaction.
Not moving. Nothing. Slide is not moving.
Okay.
You can either resume slideshow or just don't go in slideshow mode. Just keep it simple. Now try again.
So is it like, is it visible? Are you able to say it?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, sir. So I was talking about the elements of resilience. So I was talking about the fourth element, that is a reaction to disturbance. That is, for example, the survive, the coping capacity, the recovery, and the learn transmission, transform. That some of the bounce back better and recovery, but recover but worse than before. We just have to look out all these four elements that comes under the resilience framework. So why are we talking about the resilience, some benefits of resilience, like we why are we why but how that the concept came, the that we should include resilience, or what are the benefits of resilience? It's like when we talk about resilience, it's like we are talking about saving lives, we are talking about protecting infrastructure and livelihood, protecting social systems, protecting the environment, the supporting broader resilience in context of some conflicts or fragile states, or anticipating and preparing for potential problems rather than reacting to events, put us in better place while dealing with natural disasters. So since I am talking about the city resilience, it's like cities will just continue to face new and ongoing challenges in creating sufficient employment, exchanging food security, providing essential services such as housing, potable water, sanitation, basic health services and education, planning and maintaining green spaces, and managing urban waste and waste water. So there are many innovations are already taking place in urban areas to respond these challenges. So if we, in the past few like if you have seen that how with the help of resilience, or how it can play a significant role in increasing food security, incoming and employment generation, building communications and sustainable environment, and in relief and rehabilitation. So some of the like we can say some disturbances that are in cities are like the food prices have increased sharply in recent years. This has raised serious concern about the food and nutrition, especially with regard to the poor. And I'll just like to connect cities and with climate change, like how climate change is having effect on cities. As we as a sir was discussing about some of the heat waves, like no, we know that as we are like seeing that how we are having the I don't know whether we say that it's because of the climate change, there is a shift in monsoon. We had early summer, and we were not supposed to have this kind of temperature in the month of April that we experienced it. So this is having some, we are having some change because of climate change. Now, whether experiencing long-term shifts in form of sudden droughts or cyclones adds to the challenge faced by cities. And also changing rainfall pattern will particularly is affecting in our country. And also it's also affecting our farmers, but since we are talking specifically about cities, so it's having effect on cities. It's becoming the urban heatland. And resilience is somehow connected to the sustainable development goals, some sustainable development goal 1, 9, 11, and 13. They are talking about the resilience. Example, if we talk about sustainable development goal 1, it sets out to end poverty in all its forms. One of the target is to build the resilience of the poor and those in vulnerable situation, and to reduce their exposure and vulnerability to climate related extreme events and other economic, social, and environmental shocks and disasters. Also, we have seen that that resilient cities, there is a growing awareness that the combined effect of climate change and the recent flood crisis, rapid urbanizations, and continued population growth have a potential to undermine the resilience of our cities and ultimately render the current food system unsustainable. And increasingly, the importance of resilience as a strong connection between resilience and the sustainability of socio-ecological system is recognized. And resilience is a measure of a household and city or nation's ability to absorb shocks and stress, as mentioned in the slide first. If we're talking about the resilience, we just first have to look about the personal preparedness and what does that mean. It's like the disasters can and do happen, and sometimes with notes, and other times none at all. As we can give the examples of earthquake. Without earthquake, we all are having the early warning system, but for the earthquake we don't have. Although scientists are working for that, and maybe there are some high level techniques that tell us that earthquake is going to occur, but usually it's not effective. Like it's not 100% thing that that's going to tell us about. And we know that a storm can suddenly change its path even slightly and cause severe devastation. You can be prepared for any event. Being prepared is more than completing a checklist or assembling a kit. And if we have to talk about the personal preparedness, we just have to be aware of our surroundings, and we should be known about the risk is which part of the our like place where I'm living, which place is flood prone, or am I living in a place that maybe that place is prone to earthquake or something, and I should be aware of the water and food availability during the time. What if I get stuck in a flood, so it will be like I should be make myself I can say that fit, I shouldn't be like I have to survive those days. I don't know whether will the help come to me. I just have to be personally prepared for everything, and also I should prepare myself and my family, and also we should communicate with the family about the checklist and planning and all also. And the most importantly, as community is the first responder, so we just need to involve community in it. And risk management for resilient communities is first we have to identify hazards, and after that we just have to do the risk assessment of that particular hazard, and some strategies and decisions, and also those strategies we just have to implement those of these strategies. Also we have to review and evaluate them, and some of the policies that are on management, that how we should deal with some hazards should be we just have to do the policy development of and adjustment. And if I just want to describe it in the stepwise, so step 1 and step 2 particularly encompasses the ability to identify, assess the local hazards and risks, and step 3 and 4, it's to make a decision as which strategies or plans are most effective to address those hazards and risks and implement them. And 4 is for step 5 and step 6 is to review and evaluate the risk management plan and relevant risk policies. Sorry, there is some problem. My slide is not moving. Yeah. Now some disaster risk methods that are used for resilience, that there are some of research discussions that are some recommendation that FEMA has given, and same is included in sustainable development goals, and some of the targets and priorities for strengthening capacity of early warning system, risk reduction and management of national and global health risks. And we just have to develop quality, reliable, sustainable and resilient infrastructure. And about the SFTRR, we just have to strengthen disaster risk governance and management and invest in disaster risk reduction for resilience. So these are some of the disaster risk reduction methods. This is actually some of its example of education sector policies and plans, and these 3 pillars, interconnected pillars, are showing that how safe learning facilities with risk reduction and resilience education should be done. And it's actually example of school disaster management, where you can see you just have to see the safe site selection, different building codes, and whether the building is disaster resilient. It has to be made in a disaster resilient design, and builder trainings, and whether students are assessment and planning, some physical environmental protection or educational continuity plans, also some multi-hazard risk assessment, education sector analysis, child-centered assessments and planning. This is the example of how we can do resilience at the school. This is just an example. And for plan for resilient cities, we just have to see these structures, like we just have to see the hard structure, the green infrastructure, master planning, strategies and policy, emergency response and disaster management, the forecasting and monitoring system. So these are some of the examples of resilience. Like if I just have to come tell you about the green resilience, that is we have to make buildings that is building with nature. Like we just have to include we just have to make some of the structure that is we have to plant some trees, or that so that the city should not become the urban heatland. And also we should continuously see the water management in the cities, like what is the storage and delay in discharge. We just have to continually monitor them, and we just have to give the real-time control, and forecasting and early warning system and alerting should be best in cities. So coming to the next slide, that is the planning and building of resilient cities should be it should be a holistic and sustainable approach, and a possible and prioritized for all cities, and it should be realized through local governance and social will, and concentrate of urban and displacement, and innovate and provide multi-phase solutions, inclusive and empowerment to all, and specially balanced and manage urbanization linked like a better economic and better about a betterment. So before coming to the conclusion part, like before giving the conclusion, I just want to give some other way outs, like what way out should we give for these resilient cities. Like what we need actually, what needs to be done is like we just have to like integrate urban agriculture in slum upgrading, or in the design to development of new neighbors will support the development of more food secure, inclusion of human settlements, and also some urban policymakers can sustainably contribute to the development of safe and sustainable urban agriculture by creating conducive policy environment and formally accepting urban agriculture. Also, we just have to plan for the unexpected, and we just need to learn that we have to turn disaster into opportunities. We just need to learn lessons from the previous disasters. Like, okay, if we faced last year this disaster, these were the places we were not like lacking in some kind of we can say we were not having the proper equipments, or we were not the information was not disseminated properly, and we just have to give prefer to the integrated actions. And also we should believe in that the information is not knowledge. Maybe the information we receive, it's not proper, or it's not having the proper sources. We just have to we just have to see things by ourselves also, and we just have not to just but sometimes when we receive news about the deaths, we just have to like confirm it by ourselves, because it's like to avoid some crisis during disasters. We just have to rely on our knowledge, not just we should not be totally depend on the information we receive during disasters. And also for monitoring urban safety, like society and physical, through a widespread sensor network, also creating a disaster risk management center to spread the knowledge produced by reconstruction and to improve human well-being in the face of climate change. So this was all from my end. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fatima Amin, for a detailed presentation. I would now request Shri Tikender ji to start off today's session, his remarks, and to invite the speaker.
No, I don't think any remarks are required. I think it's better because I don't find any questions in the QA box as well. So I think let's go ahead with the next speaker, and then probably as we progress,
Okay.
we'll just we just.
Okay, thank you, sir. To start off today's expert session, we have Dr. Joy Elemon, Director General, Kerala Institute of Local Administration, Thrissur. We welcome you, sir.
Sir has not been able to join.
Okay.
I'm coordinating. Meanwhile, Tikandar sir, would you like to do some recap? I'll just coordinate with sir.
Again, Arjun, I missed what you said.
So meanwhile, touch upon some of the issues. I'll just try to coordinate with sir.
Please. So you want me to do something? Because
Yes, just
Yes, sir. Arjun sir is trying to contact Dr. Joy Elemon to be coming on the meet. So until then, if you can, try to recap yesterday's session, it would be great.
Sure. Because I'm using a different computer, and here I can't work without my headphones, so I can listen. But now I'm audible proper.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so thank you. I think it's just to fill in the gap. I didn't want to say anything just because Arjun has some logistics to work out. And I think we've had 2 days of a very interesting discussion. And I can see the number of participants also increasing every day. I wish that once we finish this, and then though we'll be compiling it in the form of text as well, and of course the videos would always be there. But then this comes out in a consolidated work, because there have been fascinating presentations, and including the one we just watched by Fatima ji, that speaks about cities, city resilience, and why it is important to actually consider cities as a different set of spaces for our interventions for the whole question of adaptability. And I would also like to remind some of our participants who have joined today and who were not there yesterday or day before yesterday, that actually this is in continuation to the IPCC 6, the annual the assessment report 6 that we had, and we have 3 working groups, particularly not the third one, but the second working group, that speaks about that lays lots of emphasis on cities, on coastal cities, and I'm happy that Dr. Joy is there. So already there is a projection that if things go as usual and continue the way we are progressing, then many of our coastal cities, some of very important cities, for example, Mumbai, Chennai, and even this large coast that you have in Kerala, and most of the coastal cities would have a great bearing. Where we will be on the verge of losing some of the cities. So this cannot work, and we cannot even work like the Scandinavians do. We know some of the Scandinavian cities which are below sea level, but then they have all the capital intensive technologies to protect themselves. So I think it is high time that we work on adaptability, how we can protect our people, our geography. And I wrote an article recently where there are instances and cases in the Godavari region where some of the houses have already been submerged. We've lost some of the houses in the coastal belt. So the point is, there is this imminence and the imminent character of both imminence and the imminent character of disaster that is hitting us every day. And how do we respond to it? We emphasize more on adaptability. We protect more lives. We protect more assets. And yesterday we've had a fascinating presentation by one of our colleagues in the NDTV, where he brought out the colossal loss, particularly from the 3 floods that happened in Srinagar, Chennai, and Kerala. So we know the economic loss. We also know the loss that it brings to the lives. The point is when, where do we intervene? I think with those remarks, I would request you, Kanika, to take over. And I think Dr. Joy is there. So maybe Kerala has a lot to explain, not because Kerala was hit by disasters, but also we've seen some of the finest interventions, not just from the government. Of course, it was from the government, but also from the people, where voluntarism, where people from cross sections of life participated, intervened, and they said, no, we have to take it head on. And that's how they were able to not just protect, save lives, but also bring a completely new narrative, something which we have not heard in the recent past. And then we also have this institutional framework that Kerala has brought, where planning is done at the local level, and where you have different layers of maps and atlases being created at the local level to measure the disaster proneness of towns and of villages, what we call, according to the NIDM framework, the disaster risk reduction stuff. So I think over to you. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Thank you, sir. To start off today's expert session, we have Dr. Joy Alemon, Director General, Kerala Institute of Local Administration, Thrissur. We welcome you, sir. The floor is yours.
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Ask Dr. Saab to mute.
Shall I start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you can.
Okay. So good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this online training program. It's making cities climate resilient. And in this context, you would all have a lot of experts already there in the panel. I just wanted to talk to you about something we have just initiated now. So that is about, there are 2 or 3 things which are happening, but I'll also have to tell you about some sort of a background to all these things. See, a few years back, if we had talked about climate change or even disasters, people in our place would not have noticed those kinds of things. And so naturally there will be a kind of a lack of interest. Oh, these are all global issues, whereas we are not directly affected. We might have a few disasters, but it's very localized and all. But when in the 2018 disaster, which you all might know, the floods and the other things which we had, that opened our eyes, I would say. I mean, till then, it was all to do with the coastal areas and a few other places, or the hilly areas. But there we understood that cities and towns are also affected, urban areas are also affected. I mean, it's not just the flash floods or the urban floods. I mean, everything is possible everywhere. And climate change is here to stay. That's also there. So with that, there have been a lot of initiatives, but I will, for our purpose, I focus only on a couple of things which you are doing at the moment. This is basically, one is about risk-informed master planning, because in cities and towns, we are anyway preparing the master plans. So master plans have been there, and we have all been preparing the master plans across the country, in all the cities and towns, and it's mandatory also. But then the school is different. It's a typical master plan which all of you have seen and have been using or have been preparing. Whereas in the present context, the context of climate change and the disasters waiting, we need to discuss it differently. We need to prepare the master plans differently. And that is what we call as the risk-informed master planning, where we consider both the climate change and the climate resilience and the disaster risk reduction initiatives as part of the master plan itself. So that actually takes us to a little more different level, and that is important. And anyway, because this is also an opportunity, because there is the provision for master plans and it's mandatory. And so why don't we make use of that? So the guidelines for risk-informed master plan is what we are working on at the moment. So see, why we need to have a risk-informed master plan is basically because it's essential for developing risk-based decisions in the planning process. So usually we don't do that. I mean, we don't actually consider the risk involved. So, and then, which actually takes us to a lot of other things. We need to actually discuss about the hazards and their characters, the possible disasters and their character, lessons learned from the past. Because I mean, we as technical people or the experts or the so-called experts, we go with all the book knowledge and the data knowledge and other things, whereas we also get feedback or inputs or experiences from the field. So lessons from the past disasters need to be taken care of. And then this also involves various policies and strategies across the world also. There have been international experiences, there are national experiences, and also state level experience. All these experiences have to be taken care of. And we also need to look at the legal framework also, because actually we are moving towards a risk-informed master plan where all these things have to be considered, and which also have to have a convergence with the disaster management plan, the district disaster management plan, and the local disaster management plan also. So this is one part of the story. The other part of the story is about the climate change itself. So that also has to be considered. So we need to actually identify the possible disasters, the hazards, the risks, map them. That is spatial mapping as well as the historical or temporal mapping. Both have to be there. So both have to be there, and there has to be a risk assessment. So your risk assessment and all these things, when it comes, we are actually taking this master plan preparation process to a different level. The expertise required is also different. We need to work with the state disaster management authority and other experts in that. So we need to have that identification process and mapping process, and a risk assessment methodology has to be in place, which are locally available. In this context, I have to also tell you that earlier when we prepared the local disaster management plans, the disaster management authority in the state provided around 31 layers of maps to all the local governments. See, that includes flood proneness, the drought proneness, the earthquake proneness, and all kinds of other things, and also its linkages with the transportation plan, the communication plan, infrastructure plan, and all those things. So the maps they prepared and got it ready. So now it's time for us to actually get all these things together to get into this thing. And another thing which we also need to do is that this communicating the risk, or the risk, sharing the risk information to the community. That's also important. And because finally, this is to be approved and implemented by the elected local governments, the cities and the corporations. So they need to understand, they have to be, when I say risk-informed master plan, it is about not about the risk information given to the town planners. It is about risk information given to the people. So that also has to be taken care of. And the roles and responsibilities of key agencies and institutions also have to be put in place. So there have been certain studies earlier. For example, there is the World Bank report earlier on the urban risk assessments, understanding disaster and risk in cities. And there is also a risk estimation, quick risk estimation tool developed by UNDRR, where it's also about exposure rating, the vulnerability rating, and current level exposure and response rating, and all kinds of things. But we have to make it simple also. So it is not just about copying whatever is written there, but we need to actually translate it into the, actually transform it to the local situation. So where we have identified 7 parameters. One is the hazard impact rating, physical vulnerability rating, essential or basic service vulnerability, social vulnerability, economic vulnerability, environmental or heritage vulnerability, coping capacity or level of response measures. So these 7. One, I will read it. I will read it again. One is the hazard impact rating, physical vulnerability rating, essential or basic service vulnerability, social vulnerability, economic vulnerability, environment and heritage vulnerability, coping capacity, level of response. Basically, it is all to do with the mitigation as well as to adaptation also. So both these things will come into place with this. So this is going to be a slightly difficult exercise because we are used to the usual type of master plan preparation, whereas we need to consider this. So the vulnerability itself, we have to rate it. So very low, low to moderate, high, and very high. So what is the level of vulnerability? So that risk matrix also have to be prepared. So these are some of the things which we need to, because but with the limited time, I don't want to talk too much on all those technical issues. But the second part of the story is that you also need to understand the climate vulnerability. Here, what we are trying to do is, because the climate data is not available or disaggregated at the local level, or downscale it is. So what we are now doing is downscaling the climate data and then projecting it for local government jurisdiction. There will be overlaps. For example, if it is a small town, the nearby village and town also will come under the same scenario or the projection scenario. But for my city or my town or my village, this is going to be the future, at least a projection, basically. So that is being done. Already we have downscaled that for around 4 districts out of the 14 districts. And we are trying to, so this will also be part of our tool for our risk-informed master plan. So this is the second thing which you are doing. So there is a disaster vulnerability assessments as well as the climate change projections for 2040 and 2050 kind of thing. So that will give an idea. So for example, there is a place where there is the possibility of say increased temperature, for example. Then you are planning, your master plan has to take care of that. How you actually get rid of the urban heat islands, that could be your major task. So the master plan itself has to change accordingly. So this is the second part of it. And the third part is about something called the DCAT tool, Disaster Risk and Climate Action Tracking Tool. So initially we thought it as an incentivization tool, which means we have the tracking done on what kind of actions on disaster risk reduction, as well as what kind of actions they do for climate change. And based on these actions, the local governments are incentivized. So if they are doing a lot of things on climate change and whether it is mitigation or whether climate resilience or for disaster risk reduction, then they get additional funding and all. So it's a kind of a appreciation as well as a incentivization. But we took it in a different way. The tool itself will be an education tool. It will be a training tool. So which actually comes up with a long list of possible actions. And that will be used in the training programs, which they can use for your planning. This they can use for implementation. This we can use for, and they can use for monitoring. This we can also use for tracking, assessing, and then incentivizing. So this DCAT tool, the Disaster Risk Reduction and Climate Action Tracking Tool, that will also add to the risk-informed master plan preparation so that it is comprehensively addressed. The people are trained, people plan, they implement, they monitor, and finally the tracking happens. And this tracking itself, the word tracking is not the right word, I know. So the tracking itself is about self-assessment, peer assessment, and technical assessment. So the self-assessment by the corporations or municipalities or the panchayats will be of a particular level. That takes them to the next level of peer assessment, and then the final technical assessment, which we go to do. But there again, I can tell you an example. So you might do a lot of actions on climate change adaptation or mitigation, or even for the disaster risk reduction. But if you say, in very simple terms, if I say, if you actually buy boats in a place where it is landslide is the potential threat, or it is going to be a drought prone area in future as per the climate projections, then you don't get marks. You get marks when your projections say that next 30 years you are going to be a drought prone area, or this is a landslide prone area or a flood prone area, and what action you take for that, that is the weightage you get for your actions. So this is how we link all these things together, so that we have the risk-informed master plan, we have the climate downscaling up to the local level, then we have the DCAT tool in place. In the meantime, we have also been working on something slightly related to this, is the ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction initiatives. There, we are actually trying to see how Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme can be used for ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction. For example, water structures, or how you actually develop a road in a highland area, how you can prevent landslide while you have your roads there, or how do you deal with urban floods, or all kinds of things. But why here in Kerala we can also talk about this, because we have a similar scheme called Ayyankali Urban Employment Guarantee Scheme on the similar lines of MGNRHS, or the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So our urban local governments can use this scheme also, and the rural, anyway, they are using the MGNRHS. So then we are trying to see how MGNRHS, or the Ayyankali Urban Employment Guarantee Scheme, can be, their actions and activities can be modified or made use of to deal with disaster risk reduction, where it is ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction or nature-based solutions kind of thing. So as I said, these are some of the 4 actions I would say we are in the process of developing and doing. And all these 2 things together, we mean by climate resilient, disaster risk reduced Kerala as part of the Rebuild Kerala initiative. So we rebuild for a better future. So with these words, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joy Lemon, sir, for your insightful thoughts and valuable points for this session. Tikendra ji, do you have any remarks to add?
Thank you, Dr. Joy, and it was really nice to watch you as always, as usual. But do we have any question in the QA inbox? No. Okay. So I think there are 3-4 issues, Dr. Joy, that I would like to raise. It was really interesting, the kind of new innovative feature that you have brought about, while preparing the master plan, converging many of the issues. I mean, especially not just mapping the disaster proneness, but also, I mean, something very interesting that you said, that risk information to the people. I mean, after all, it has to go to the people, not just to the documents and to the books, I mean, which are then seldom taken into consideration. The first thing is that how are you managing this convergence? I mean, what is the institutional framework that you are working with? And and I think if you could dwell a little bit more on, this communicating to the local governments, and then finally passing on this risk information to the people. I think that would be really interesting, fascinating. Probably many towns in the north do not even have an idea of the functioning, because you went ahead with the so that if you could just explain a little bit more on that. And thirdly, who is preparing this tool? The tool that you've mentioned. Is it in-house? Is it part of the government exercise? Have you hired some experts, agencies, or have you outsourced it to someone? I mean, if that will be nice for our participants to know. Because after all, most of our participants would be very keen and interested into working out. And fourthly, I think that's a comment. I mean, many of us who've been advocating very staunchly for an Urban Employment Guarantee Act. And here lies the space and the scope for not just on civil works. Generally it is said that urban employment guarantee would be reduced to some civil work kind of space like we have in the Rural Employment Guarantee Act. And it's not limited to that, by the way, even in the Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So, I mean, all those green jobs that we're talking about. So I think that's an interesting area where you've innovatively try to bring in the scope and the space of the Urban Employment Guarantee. Yeah. So, and there is a QA, if you can take that. So why? Yeah. So I think if we could respond to the first 2-3 queries, and then maybe we can have 2 more questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
So, because of the short time, I could not actually dwell too much on all these things which you have raised, all these very pertinent and relevant questions. One, the structure of and how it is. See, usually, I don't know, but what I have understood is that across the country, these master plans are prepared by the technical experts, the planners, and it's a standalone kind of document. I mean, where there is no participation outside the expert group or the town planners or whoever it is. So that is one issue. So there, in our case, I mean, everywhere it could be that on paper that this is the local government, the city or the municipality have to actually do it. So in our case, they are the master plan is prepared by the municipality or the city. That's one thing. The experts provide technical expertise. So the entire process is such that the approval is there, the decision is there, the approval is decision to prepare a master plan, the approval, I mean, finally, I mean, the various consultations they do. Finally, there is a standing committee on town planning itself within the council. So all these things are there. And then there are also the working groups where the people and the experts and all of us are also together. And then there are also the consultations. So this is inbuilt. So that planning group provides the technical expertise, but it is owned by the corporation or the municipality. So that is how the structure is. So finally, even the decision to prepare a master plan is taken by the municipality, and finally the approval also is done. And in between there are these structures like the standing committee, the working group, all these things. So it's not a office room exercise or a lab exercise, but it's actually a lot of consultations have to take place. That structure is there. So that is the structure we have. Second one is, during this process, the people also get involved because of the consultations. And associated with that, we are also doing a sort of an environment creation where, see, usually master plans are considered as a regulatory plan. We are actually talking about a development plan. Master plan should be a development plan, and it has to be dynamic. So usually what happens is that once you prepare the master plan, it will be there forever. And many of the decisions later are all dependent upon this plan, which is almost like a stone, which cannot be touched kind of thing. But what we advocate and advise is that this has to be, every 5 years, this has to be looked into and see whether it has to be updated, it has to be changed and all those kinds of things. So because we are in a very dynamic society, so we need to consider that, especially with this climate change and disasters and all. Sometimes the entire scenario might change, and then we need to. So we consider this as a dynamic process. So master plan preparation is not a one-time event. So that's a thing. With regard to the DCAT tool, the disaster risk reduction and climate action tracking tool, you got the point right there. So this is prepared here in Kerala. It's a participatory process because usually such things happen as experts, consultants, not as experts. You give it to some agency or a firm and then they prepare it. Whereas we decided that this cannot happen this time. Such a thing is to be used by the local government, as well as by the people, as well as by the technical experts. So which means right from the development of the tool, this has to be there. I mean, the participation has to be there. So we prepare it. When, of course, it is guided by the government and a particular program for research supported by the World Bank and various other national governments also. They all support us in this one. But this part of the DCAT part is done internally with several rounds of workshops where people come together from all walks of life, right from the volunteers to the resource persons, to the elected representatives, to the officials, to the technical experts like the town planners and climate experts and the disaster management experts. Now, all these and different sectoral experts also come in so that it is done comprehensively. And so it is developed in-house. Of course, we will also share it with institutions and others and firms who are working on similar lines, especially nationally and internationally, so that it is made better. So far what we have understood that there are similar tools developed or used in a few places, but these are not part of a local government tool. See, as you said, these are all consultancy exercises where you prepare the tools, whereas here we are actually thinking about a tool for the local governments to plan and implement and then assess. So this is how it is. So that is your question. So which is we are doing it internally for the time being, and then we will actually share it with others so that it can be improved. And the final point is about the urban employment guarantee scheme and others is that, see, we have a legacy of this People's Plan campaign. So the system is such that there are possibilities of convergence, there are possibilities of various players coming together. We make use of all these things together. So we do not also want to lose the experiences we have with the People's Plan campaign. So even the preparation of the master plan and the actions are in relation to the People's Plan campaign process and others. So these are some of the questions. I hope I answered a little bit of what you asked. Thank you.
So before we jump to the questions, Dr. Joy, because Karnika will take those questions, there are 4 questions. I just, do you have a matrix of this tool in English so that if it is there, readily prepared, we could probably borrow it and we could share it with some of our friends in different parts of the country.
Okay.
So that it's easier for them also to implement. You know, if there's already a matrix, I mean, they don't have to do that exercise again. So Arjun can coordinate and probably we can work. Arjun, do you get that?
Yes.
That is something interesting. I mean, quite unheard of. I mean, the way people have been participating, and you know, you move away from this whole bunch of consultancy business. I mean, here is a set of people who would be planning for themselves and then completely imbibing the structure. I think that will be fascinating. Dr. Joy, if you could do that, so probably we'll coordinate later.
In fact, I mean, we are in the final stage. Final workshops are happening on 30th and 31st and all. Probably after that, we will be able to share it. Probably we can also have a national workshop, inviting a few of you.
Yes,
so
that's
also,
what Arjun and I will try to do, so that we can get into.
We will see how it can happen. We will see how
other states also. Yes.
So that others also can have a look at it, and inputs from all of you will also help us in making it better.
Yes, so that will be.
We will do that, and we'll share it also.
Perfect.
Only thing is, somebody has to remind me. That's all.
No, Dr. Arjun and our team will do that. Don't worry. So, Karnika, can you take the questions, please? There are a few more questions, Dr. Joy, you'll have to answer.
So, Abhijit Ji has asked, why are underground bunkers not there in India as there are in many Western countries? And the continuity is that, can it be done in future tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India?
Sorry, I think I am not the right person to answer that. So I leave it like that.
Okay. Afsan Saiji has asked, my question with Joy sir is that most of the people, especially in urban areas, they have lack of information about the disasters. How can we easily aware our citizens?
Yeah, this is actually the real issue. See, people usually think that the rural areas do not have enough information, whereas I find the urban areas, the people living in urban areas are totally outside all our frame of things. So as part of our initiative, which I mentioned now, see, we have a major component on orientation, exposure, and capacity development, where whatever we are doing now, especially when we actually have these training programs on the DCAT tool, that becomes a major source of awareness creation for all these people. So we are trying to do that, but that is a challenge we also have everywhere.
Okay, sir. Ujjwal ji has asked, sir, there is a new discourse of having a separate cadre for IAS for municipal services, considering the fact that preparation requires certain technocracy and expertise in the preparation of master's plan. Majority of master's plans are prepared by state parastatals and special purpose vehicles, and their at least involvement municipalities. You see the cadre of MC would help in the implementation of 18 functions in the 12 schedule.
See, I mean, this is actually my personal observation only, or response only, and nothing. I mean, we don't take it serious. I mean, in that way. But the thing is, we need to actually rethink about this halo around IAS. See, I mean, if you have IAS, when will the question be? The issues will be solved. So I don't think that is the thing. Here, actually, the question should be how to strengthen the municipality. When you say strengthening the municipality, it's not about bringing an IAS officer. It's about strengthening the capacities of the elected local government as a municipality, treat them as elected local government. And we need to work towards that. And to whichever officer comes in, it is actually to support the elected government and not to rule over the elected government. That's usually what happens across. So my point is that, first of all, IAS do not bring in technical expertise. It is also more to do with the power they have. Rather, if you want to have expertise, then you need to go for experts. But experts are to facilitate and support, not to take decisions. The decision making has to be done by the elected local government through a process. So there, they also need to consider the technical matters, and where that has to be made mandatory also. But this is how I see things. So I don't think IAS actually brings in value addition to the existing structure. I mean, the power behind the IAS actually brings in some change, not the IAS person himself or herself.
Thank you, sir. Tikinderji, do you have any points, or can we move on to the next?
Better move on to the next speaker.
Okay. Thank you, Tikinder sir and Dr. Joy, for bringing on insightful points to the table. Next in our expert trainers list, we have Professor K.K. Pandey. Professor K.K. Pandey is a professor of urban management and coordinator of Center for Urban Studies, Indian Institute of Public Administration, New Delhi. We welcome you, sir.
There is some difficulty. Why not to read the housekeeping announcement once again?
Okay. I would like to make the housekeeping announcements once again. Join the meeting on time, ensure at least 80% attendance. 15 to 20 minutes will be provided for Q&A after each lecture. Share your questions on the Q&A box only and not on the chat box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise and refrain from making general comments.
Okay, sir has joined. Mr. Pandey, can you hear us? Mr. Pandey, can you hear us?
Please ask Professor Pandey to unmute his mic.
Yes. So please unmute yourself.
Video is gone. Kanika, who's the next speaker after Professor Pandey?
Professor V.P. Satish, sir.
Is he online so we can take? No, Professor Pandey is there. Yeah, we can have
Yes,
him.
he's come.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Pawar sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, sir.
Nice, so nice to see you. Yeah. Sir, we are waiting for you, eagerly waiting for your presentation, sir.
Yeah, definitely. Respected Pawar sir and other panelists and distinguished participants, I am going to share our experience and knowledge on role of urban local bodies, municipal bodies in disaster management. Okay, Anand? क्या कर रहा है? आवाज खुली? हाँ सर. Yes. Role of urban local bodies in disaster management. What we see, there are two types of disaster which affect urban local bodies. One are man-made disaster and other is natural disaster. Man-made disasters include urban flooding, fire, forest fire in the towns which are surrounded by forest, building collapse, and law and order issues in urban areas.
Professor Pandey, the slide is not moving. पहले वाले पे अटक गया है.
अच्छा.
आप सर अगर स्टॉप कर दे तो मैं ले आता हूँ स्क्रीन पर. आई एम रेडी.
हाँ ठीक है स्टॉप कर दो.
एक बार आप स्टॉप करो.
भूले आ गए.
That's fine, sir.
Yeah. So,
You can see.
Man-made disaster include urban flooding, fire, forest fire, building collapse. We have seen in Delhi, Mumbai, the buildings come up without proper permissions, and illegal land subdivision is the basis. So those buildings are not properly maintained and have little life, and that causes problem. Fire, recently we have seen in Delhi, there were two cases where because of the electricity inadequacy, the fire broke out in two two buildings locating industries, and urban flooding was seen quite often in our cities. We had flooding in Gurugram, in Chennai, and several other cities, which is a common process. There are reasons for this, and those reasons belong to our defects in our planning, in our management, and in our public awareness and cooperation. Natural disasters also affect urban areas, cyclones and floods, droughts, earthquake, and pandemic. We know the corona currently affecting our cities, especially because people living in different parts of the city become affected by were affected by the pandemic, and hotspots were created, and there are other epidemics which also affect from time to time. Next. ULB's role in man-made disaster is very important, which cover provision and upkeep of drainage network. Drainage network is not maintained properly. Mapping is not available. Drains are not laid down in the entire city, or the natural drainage system has been affected in our faulty planning. We do not follow the natural flow of water which is there everywhere, and that flow is not given due cognizance in our planning, and colonies and houses come up which affect the flow of water, and floods take place in our cities. So these are various reasons which can be checked and which can be corrected by our municipal bodies. Then efficient collection of solid waste. This also affects human life, create environmental problem, and like plague we had in Surat decades back was a result of improper collection of waste, and the rat got that disease, and it was spreading, and the whole country was under a sort of havoc. Antibiotics were not available in the market. People used to try to buy antibiotic in anticipation. So even solid waste create that type of disaster. Otherwise, there is a slow disaster in the form of it affects the environment and air in the towns, and create problems for poor, particularly who get diseases, and this needs another intervention from municipal bodies to improve the waste management. Upkeep of road and cleaning and the adequate size of the road is another area which need proper attention to avoid man-made disaster, particularly the flooding. So solid waste also causes flooding when it chokes the drainage system or the points where water is going in the sewage. Checking illegal land subdivision is very important for building collapse and fire. When fire erupts, the fire engine cannot move in the areas which are illegally developed. So illegal land subdivision also causes several issues for man-made disaster in our cities. And development of RWAs and NGOs in this area can play a very important role. Even the illegal colonies can take up a drive of necessary space for roads, etc., as has been done with the help of local councils in Mizoram and some other Bangalore. They have ward committees. So that sort of involvement of RWAs and NGOs with the municipal system is also a very important role of municipal body to motivate them. So municipal bodies play a very important role in the drainage system, which create flooding, in the waste management, which can create environmental issues, and upkeep of roads and cleaning, and illegal land subdivision, uh, checking illegal land subdivision, and also correcting the inadequacies in the illegal land subdivision, and promoting RWAs and NGOs are the activities which are very important in the case of man-made disaster. Next. And in the area of natural disaster, risk reduction and mitigation strategy at municipal level needs to be developed. Municipal bodies are not involved in this task right now, but there is a need because they are the mother institution at local level. They should know the impact of potential earthquake or potential cyclone which is taking place in the nearby area, which has come in the nearby areas, or the drought which brings people suddenly in the city. So the risk reduction in the strategy and mitigation strategy for natural disaster is very important uh, to be attempted at municipal level. In addition to this, integrated command and control centers. These have emerged in the smart cities. Other cities should also follow. And we have seen in the corona that integrated command and control centers have played a very important role to identify hotspots, to provide services for proper help to those who got affected or proper vaccination. So the integrated command and control center, which is run by cities in bigger cities under smart city mission, and now other cities are also moving towards this, will play a very important role. Uh, Third aspect of municipal role is in the natural disaster is rescue and relief centers. These are essential for cyclone hit, drought hit, or flood hit areas in the natural flooding, and these should be the part of municipal function. Right now, again, this is also not municipal function. Proper attention is not given in this, and approval of building permissions and codes. A proper application of the codes which are available, which are there, but which are not implemented practically. Uh, like ECBC, Energy Conservation Building Code, or there are several other acts, the Solid Waste Management Act, the disposal of C&D waste, etc., are very important, which should be taken up by municipal bodies to prevent disaster or to mitigate disaster or to improve the effect of climate change, to address the issues of climate change. Next. Initiatives have been taken. It is not that what we are discussing is the only thing and government does not know and the municipal bodies do not know. There are initiatives taken up. As I said, Smart City Mission has taken up integrated command and control center, but also there is one climate smart city assessment framework has been developed under the Smart City Mission, which has 28 indicators in 5 areas. One is the urban planning and green cover, how planning and green cover should be developed, which is able to address the climate change and the disaster mitigation and prevention. Energy and green buildings is the second area, which is very important for climate change. Mobility and air quality is both for man-made disaster and climate change, and water management and waste management. So under these 5 areas, there are 28 indicators which tell the situation, how municipal body is figuring in these areas and provides an idea how to make strategy. So this assessment framework is very important, which is applied in 126 cities. And last time the rating indicated that Ahmedabad, Nagpur, Pune and Vijayawada, they have done commendable work in these 5 areas, which other cities should try to adopt. Ahmedabad has done survey of trees in the city with the help of school children. Pune is doing excellent work in waste management and also in the management of lakes and treatment of sewage. Vijayawada, etc., also has done improvement in each of the 5 areas on 28 indicators. So this needs to be disseminated, and we need to learn how cities in these 5 areas are taking initiatives. Street for People Challenge is another initiative under Smart City Mission, which tries to reimagine space, safe air, safety, and mobility. The idea is how the streets are made pupil friendly, how space can be created and can be identified and can be preserved and promoted to improve the air in the streets, to improve the safety. Suppose CCTV can be provided, street lighting can be adequately provided, and mobility can be made smooth. So this again is a good initiative to assess. Again, 113 cities are covered right now, but this provides a demonstration effect, and this is important area to address the disaster and climate change. Because as I said, streets play a very important role in case of fire, in case of flood. So a proper maintenance and management of a street is covered in this assessment, which gives an idea to city how to take initiatives. Next. Another thing is this year, so Swachh Bharat Mission 2 has been taken up. And we all know that Swachh Bharat Mission 1 covered open defecation free settlements. But now Swachh Bharat Mission 2 says that ODF plus and ODF plus plus, which means waste collection and disposal, how it is collected and how it is disposed. That is very important part under the Swachh Bharat Mission, for which we are going to see in the coming years. Several initiatives will come, and these are all related to climate change and disaster. They focus on reduce, recycle, and reuse in case of solid waste. And that is essential. What we have seen in Gazipur, in Delhi, or in other cities, there are hills of waste which create environmental problem, health problem, and wastage of resource. In fact, waste is a resource. Municipal waste, whether it is solid waste or liquid waste, it is a resource. And we should not waste that resource. And that preserves our environment and enable us to reduce also the particulate matter 10 and particulate matter 2.5, and have the clean and good air. So reduce, recycle and reuse. And Amrit is another Government of India's mission, which emphasize on surplus water. And the purpose of the mission is to reuse at least 20% water, treat entire water, and make efforts to reuse 20% water. And this addresses the environmental issue, climate change issue of water. And in this, the treatment of water is main issue. And treatment is not done properly in our country. Still, 85% water is not treated. And that treatment is not possible in one treatment plant or two treatment plants unless we adopt decentralized treatment plants or treatment in a decentralized manner in our cities. And that is emerging in Bengaluru, in Ahmedabad, in Pune, in Nagpur, in several cities. These initiatives are taken up, and another objective of the mission is piped water to all, which uh, provides safe water to the entire population. Water harvesting, treatment, reviving of lake is also purpose of Amrit 2 and Swachh Bharat Mission 2 also, in the sense of Swachh Bharat Mission 2 says the treatment of water. So this year itself, the Government of India has increased 2.5 times more allocation for this activity, that is 4.3 lakh crore. And things will emerge which our cities have to learn from city to city learning. Next. So the disaster preparedness require a sequence of activities, vulnerability assessment, planning, and institutional framework. We need information system and response mechanism, then the resource base in the municipal body, public education and training awareness, and warning system within the city, and also rehearsals, trial efforts. So this municipal body has to adopt this framework in its activities in the area of waste management. Next. Next. 15th Finance Commission, which submitted its report in 2020, has given special attention, which is also going to improve this situation in our cities. They have allocated 38,000 crore for urban agglomerations, 44 urban agglomerations which cover more than 1,000 towns. And out of this, 32% is for air quality improvement, which will focus on climate change, and also water and sanitation 2/3. So the focus of funding coming from 15th Finance Commission is on air quality and water and sanitation. And this is based on also doing good, achieving good performance will enable the allocation for the next year, and grassroots action plan has to be prepared by cities and under a 5-year perspective. So this, for the first time, the 15th Finance Commission has included air quality and water and sanitation with a specific focus, with more allocation in the municipal system. Next. State and city level initiatives are also there, which have due importance. UN-led Race to Zero, that zero carbon cities campaign 2050, for which India is committed to 2070 target. Our focus is to achieve this by 2070, and in this area, some states have already taken up specific steps. A commitment to major towns of 43 in Maharashtra towards Race to Zero is one initiative. Gujarat and Bihar are also planning Race to Zero, and also drive to deregister to eliminate end of use life vehicles. The old vehicles create environmental problem. They also use more fuel and pollution, generate pollution. So there is now a policy. Bigger cities like Delhi, etc., are attempting to stop use of such vehicles under end of use life vehicle policy. Scientific processing of construction and demolition waste is also a very important area, which makes it a resource, where this waste is used for making bricks and blocks, toilet blocks, and material to be used in the road construction. So this again here hardly 10% remains as waste, but 90% CND waste is used, and there are cases in Delhi, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Pune also, where CND waste is taken up. So this is another important area, that CND waste is not just thrown in open areas, which affect the natural flow of water. What we low-lying areas, we take CND waste and dump, and that affects the water flow and creates urban flooding. So CND waste management is important area which is needing attention from our cities. Next. State city level initiatives also include treatment and sale of water in apartments. Recently, Bangalore, just last week, some apartments have started selling treated water. They are treating water and selling. South MCD has identified 9 sites for parking commercial vehicles to restrict the parking on roads. So this parking itself is very important area to have smooth movement on the roads and make roads safer and environmentally positive. Chennai has innovation officer in the corporation. So these type of innovations, how to adopt, how to apply, need a special initiative, special vision in the municipal body, which need a special deployment of officer person, a responsible person. And Chennai has done this. They have appointed innovation officer, which is adopting the innovations in lake revival, water harvesting, etc., and helping the ULB to adopt this strategy, to adopt this strategy, these innovations. Delhi Master Plan 2041 also focus on green and blue development, which is essential in the current times when global focus is on race to zero or carbon free environment, and our planning in the city planning should learn from the recent initiative under the master plan of Delhi, which other master plans need to give due cognizance. Next. Then this in the national capital region, they have done the CND waste exhaustive checklist on monitoring of dust mitigation. They have made it compulsory now to put the CND waste generation on web for all buildings which are constructed on more than 1,000 square meter of plots. This will go a long way to air quality management, and upload this information fortnightly, action on violation of dust norms, and CND waste rule. This is for 500 square meter plot and above. Next. So this Commission on Air Quality Management in Delhi, that type of approach need to be followed. Municipal roadmap on disaster management. In this overall context, what should be the roadmap? In this area, municipal bodies, as I initially said, are not included, are not covered in the disaster management system. This is the main issue which need to be attended immediately. We have National Disaster Management Authority, we have State Disaster Management Authority, we have District Disaster Management Authority, but city government will be represented in the management framework of disaster management. So it is not encouraging municipal body to prepare a municipal plan for man-made and natural disaster. If we bring municipal body in this system, then it will pave way for a municipal plan for man-made and natural disaster, guidelines to be prepared in this area, that what municipal bodies should be doing, how they should attempt this. So first, we have to include them, then guidelines are needed. In this, center should take a lead and guide the states to include municipal bodies in this system. Application status of municipal acts, codes and bylaws. They all say that you do not throw waste, CND waste just in open. Similarly, how the waste collection, how buildings should be given building permission. But all those need proper implementation. A specific portion of municipal budget should be earmarked for climate change and disaster management. Many activities are already taken up by municipal body, but it will help to consolidate actions on climate change and disaster management. So the municipal budget should have a separate portion on disaster management and climate change, and different activities already done may be included, and other activities can be added as per requirement, which deemed suitable for municipal body. And separate grant for disaster and climate should be given, as this 15th Finance Commission has already started air quality management for 44 urban agglomerations, but this needs to be followed by state finance commissions. When they submit their report, now state finance commissions are there in the states preparing their report. They should include the disaster and climate change as one of the focus areas. Next. So this roadmap also include, as I said, municipal budget, section for climate change, also like disaster, and state plan for zero carbon cities, as just earlier slide. Yeah, state plan. At state level, it should be consolidated, and state should encourage, like Maharashtra and NCTD, what they have commissioned for air quality management. Those type of initiatives are needed. State urban transport policy, it is their national urban transport policy, but states should also bring giving due cognizance to end-of-life vehicle, parking places, spaces, and environment-friendly building construction and CND waste, reduction and recycle, and circular economy. So all these initiatives are linked to each other. The initiatives towards the climate change and disaster management have very important role for municipal bodies, which need to be duly recognized. Plantation drive, census of trees, as NDMC has done just this year and last year also, and Ahmedabad has done. So the census of trees in the city, preservation of the city, new plantation drive, and revised master plans giving due cognizance to green and blue development will go a long way to improve and enhance the municipal role in the disaster management and climate change. Next. So also make disaster risk reduction a priority. Know the risk and take action. So this knowing the risk, as I said in the earlier chart, that collecting the information, knowledge in the city and build understanding and awareness, reduce risk, and be prepared and ready to take action. So this municipal agenda in this slide, or what I showed earlier, needs action from central government, from state government and municipal body, inclusion of municipal bodies in the disaster management system. There is a need to plan for disaster. There is a need to make space in the municipal budget for disaster and climate change, and also the awareness in the community. So all those actions like rescue and relief center, like integrated command and control center, which is already there. Also, there is a need to reassess, to revisit whatever the municipal bodies have and what they need and how they should be encouraged to take actions in the disaster management and climate change. Next. This is just to show that the kitchen waste is treated at local level in a decentralized manner in a dollar colony. This is dollar colony of Bengaluru, where the entire colony's entire kitchen waste come here and they put daily. After that, they put cow dung or coconut peat or green this dry leaf. Anything can be put, and then next layer within 3 weeks it become manure. So this is this type of several equipments and machines are there which are needed to reduce the Gazipur, to reduce the hills of garbage and also to segregate. And this is another area where kitchen waste is treated. Here the solid waste is treated. Even this thermocol can be processed, and it leads to the input which is needed in bangles, in photo frame, and several important valuable items. So nothing is waste. We have to move in that action. Next. This is a green leaf composter, very simple, easy and cheap equipment costing 1,000 rupees. Here the green leaf we burn green leaf and create environmental issues. And here, if the green leaf can be put and the coconut peat or cow dung or are put above that, it can become manure within 3 weeks. So this is another initiative. So like this, there are several initiatives which cities are taking and which we need to learn. This is time of learning from city to city, town to town, and it will go a long way to address the issues of disaster and environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pandey sir, for this valuable points and such a detailed presentation. Tekendra sir, do you have any remarks, or can we go to the Q&A? So your voice is not audible. Very low.
Is it audible now?
Very low, sir.
Now?
No.
Now? Is it audible now?
It is, but it's very low, sir.
Hello?
Yes, yes.
Now is it okay?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Now it is okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Pandey. It's really very nice to watch your presentation. There's two aspects and two issues that I would like to flag here. I am in almost 90% conformity to what Professor Pandey is saying. After all, his presentation comes from lots of experiences which have actually got engulfed into some of the policy making tools at the national and even at the provincial levels. So yeah, when Professor Pandey was pointing out, ratifying the city disaster management plan of actions, I think it's very pertinent. We have the authorities from the PM, CM, and that's always I've been saying to the DM. The mayor, the metropolitan mayor or the city mayor, the lower CM is completely missing. So I think it's high time we think beyond the scope of district being the disaster unit, whereby the district magistrate is the sole in charge. I think it's the city government that has to create that atlas. Like what we did in Simla, mapping the vulnerabilities and all that we've been discussing in the previous presentation by Dr. Joy. But at the same time, engaging, involving people, but simultaneously ratifying those documents. We have those documents, but those documents are not ratified. So first of all, we should create those documents. And I think this is what I really support Professor Pandey's point that actually that structural change is required. Another point which I am a little, I won't say loser, but I Professor Pandey guard myself. And that is what when you have said about the smart cities. And this is what I've been asking even.
So you're stuck. Tikinder sir, is your network?
There's some issue over voice.
Pandey sir, while Tikinder sir, rejoins, would you like to answer the questions which is come in the Q&A box? You're muted, sir. Pandey sir, you're muted. Now it's.
There is one question about Delhi's recent incidents of fire.
Yes.
And that is very unfortunate. In fact, Delhi is sitting on a hill of disaster. Anytime it can happen, because the 40% area is illegal land subdivision. Another 20% is illegal construction within urban villages and other areas. So we have been very liberal, or you can say the corruption has motivated these type of repeated developments, which are not. We have seen building collapse also we see from time to time. So unless we properly address the unauthorized colonies and illegal construction, these type of incidents will occur, and sometimes we don't know in what way it may happen. Suddenly, if you remember, you may not remember, in 79, 89, there was in the East Delhi area, when rains came, hand pump water got polluted and gastro epidemic erupted, and 500 people died within few hours in the slums. So that type of incidents may take place in Delhi anytime, because we have not given due cognizance to these aspects. And these basic services of Delhi are not properly provided. Now the unification of the corporation has taken place. There is a need to properly look into these affairs of the capital city of India. And the governance of Delhi, there are multi-layers, but the coordination between different layers is not properly done. And the sufferer is the city. Sufferer is the common man. Sufferers are the inadequate delivery of services. So Delhi is good example to look into the matter, and other cities may take a note that illegal land subdivision and illegal construction is, we are just putting poison in the city.
Yes, sir. There is another question by Abhijit Ji. He asks, the silt of drainage in the Bangalore and Mumbai Municipal Corporation limits are not desilted before monsoon. So the flooding in residential area is caused. Is there any kind of measures taken by ULB to prevent such calamities?
Flooding.
Yes, sir.
Flooding, there is a natural water flow which need to be given due cognizance when we plan. That is in the planning. Second, the drainage and sewage network should be properly maintained. Hardly any city have a proper mapping of sewage and drainage network. A mapping is not available. So if something happens, we call the inspector, who the lineman or the concerned employee who was there 20 years back when this water line or sewer line was laid down, and then he comes and he says that this is the place where this network is there, and this is then the efforts are taken. Second, third is the proper regular replacement and repair of network is not done by our city. The work is done on emergency basis. When a pipe breaks out, then we go and try to correct it. So the regular repair and maintenance need money also. Cities have severe lack of resources. And now even this COVID has affected further the cities in terms of resources. Their RBI study last year also confirms. So resources are needed, proper planning is needed, proper management is needed, public awareness is needed. Then only the flooding and related aspects can be tackled. As I said, CND waste also, just we are taking waste, disposal of waste in the low-lying areas outside the city also affect and choke the natural water flow from the city to other open nalas and rivers.
Thank you, sir. I think Tikendra sir has also joined. He had a few remarks and questions. Over to you, sir.
Where
Sir, you're not audible.
Voice got. So you were saying something about smart city. But so your voice is not coming.
No, sir.
No, it got stuck.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, Pandey, sir.
Actually, I got one telephone call, so I did not hear you also, whether you are asking me or not. So I'm just watching this program from 11 onwards, 11 a.m. onwards. So I was the first person who logged in. But anyway, at this time, I got one telephone. So
So we'll go to you. Yes, no.
yes, I will share my presentation. Thank you very much for inviting me. And this is very good opportunity me to make a presentation
Okay.
in this very important occasion. And I thank you all of you from IMPRI. My topic of presentation is city scale vulnerability and future of Aizawl city. This is actually a case study and it is useful for almost all the cities located in mountainous areas, mainly in the Himalaya. This Aizawl is a capital city of Mizoram, and I will just talk about this, how Aizawl city is located and what are the future threats in terms of the disasters or the other these very prominent future disasters may lead to the collapse of the Aizawl city because of its all location and all haphazard way of constructing settlements.
Sorry, sir, could you share it in full screen?
Full screen also, but let me to check whether it is some problem maybe coming here. It is not also going. Yeah, can you see it now?
We can see the screen, sir. If you could, do it slideshow.
But if I go for full screen, it may not slide down. I will check. I will check.
Okay.
And then you see whether it is seen. Acha.
Okay.
It is sliding down.
Yes.
Okay. So this. Okay. Thank you so much. So I will talk on certain issues that is related to this city scale vulnerability of Aizawl city. I will talk about the population, how population is being increased during the past decades, area and water scarcity in the city, because it is very, that it is located in very steep and very rugged terrain. So water is always a problem for the city. I will also talk about the risk and vulnerability. Where is the space for making Aizawl city smart? So space is one of the very, very important point, not only for Aizawl, but most of the Himalayan cities. Limited space and the increasing population leading to severe, that city scale vulnerability. And then the last slide will be that what can be done to make Aizawl city smart. So these will be the points of presentation that I will do here. If you see this map, actually one of the very important factor of this, the city is that the entire Mizoram is located in the extreme northeast part of India, and where the facilities, particularly infrastructure facilities, are not enough. Because of the even transportation or air facilities. So, and the Aizawl city is located in the middle central of the this Mizoram. It is only a city where some infrastructure facilities are available, and then a huge exodus people from the rural areas of Mizoram, they are migrating to these cities and making it crowded. So this is the location map of this area. When we see some salient features of this Aizawl city, its coordinates is this, and then the altitude, actually it is 800 meter to 1,100 meter average.
The slides are not moved.
Yeah, that's why I was afraid about this.
Let me share.
It is coming, no?
It's not coming. Let me share the screen, sir. If you can stop, I can share the screen.
Yeah, that I will do like this. It will come down. I will not make it full now. It will slide when I am going without making the screen full. It will be happen with you also. Yeah. So now you can see this another slide. Is it okay?
Yes. Sir. You can also show the map.
Yes. So if I make it full, then it will not slide. And when I will make it like this, it will slide.
No problem.
Some problem maybe. So as okay, so this city is located at you see that some settlements are also there. They are located below 800 meters, but they are very few. Total area of this city is 97 square kilometer, and the two rivers, they are they flow in both sides of the city. So it is making the city a very high altitude ridge. Like Tolang city flows in the Tolang river flows in the west, and the Turial river flows in the east. And they are making the city water parting river. So very steep water parting river, water parting city. Aizawl is the biggest city of the mountainous part of the Himalaya in population. However, it lies on the most rugged and precipitous slope. So if you see the population, you see population data of all the Himalayan cities. The highest population is found in Aizawl city, even more than Simla or more than other Itanagar or Gangtok or other mountain cities. So it is highly populated and densely populated city. So here you can see this also the city is not so much old. In 1890, it was built by the Britishers. It is about 128 years ago. And then after that, it has been crowded now. If you see the population data of Mizoram, and the density of Mizoram is only 52 persons per square kilometer. But in Aizawl city, the density is 3,021 persons living in per square kilometer, which is I think among the highest even in the plain cities also. And the total population of Aizawl is 25.6% of the total population of Mizoram. So almost all the people coming from the remote areas, they want to settle in Aizawl city. In terms of growth rate also, growth rate is entire Mizoram growth rate is very high, because the Mizos are minority communities, and they want to have more than 4 children to make their population substantial. Therefore, the growth rate of population in Aizawl is always higher than the other cities of India. And growth rate also in terms of natural growth rate, as I told you that these people, they want more children, and in Aizawl also the same situation. And also the high rate of in-migration, people coming from the rural areas and they are settling over here. So these are the reasons of the very high growth rate in Aizawl city. One of this city's sprawl and its consequences is one of the consequences is water scarcity. Though Mizoram received the highest rainfall after Meghalaya, Mosinggram, and the average rainfall, even Aizawl city receives 2,400 millimeters per year. But there is always scarcity of water during the 3-4 months of the dry season during winter. And the water supply from the rivers also, it is scanty. These two rivers, Tolang and Turial river, they flow from the west and east part of the city, but they are, although they are perennial, but during the winter season, they are dried in most of the places. Water flow is less, and water is also not good in quality because of the lots of siltation is there. And during winter, 4 months of winter, which is dry season for Aizawl city, the water level is very less in Tolang and Turial rivers, and then it is very huge water scarcity. And because it is sprawling and also the population is growing, so they are facing lots of problems. Even the water-related diseases are very high during the winter because of the water is not much pure. Road congestion is also one of the problem in Aizawl city, and because of the increasing number of vehicles. If we look into the number of vehicles also, in 2012, there were about 50,000 vehicles. Now in 2020, they are increased to 2,70,661. And then that increase is 81.5%. Average number of vehicles per family is 3. So this is also very, and because it is mountainous city, very steep slopes, narrow roads, so it gives some lots of problems for this road traffic, and sometimes there is a huge jam on the road. So it also kills the people times who are going for working in their offices. So I will come, this was some general information about Aizawl city, and very important information also, because this will make a platform for our this further presentation. In terms of risk and vulnerability, Aizawl in entire Mizoram comes under the seismic zone 5th, which is highly vulnerable for any devastating situation. And also one of the this fault that is called Indo-Burmese arc, it is passing through the middle south of Mizoram, and it is very, very devastating. Aizawl is locating very close to that Indo-Burmese arc. High cityscape vulnerability is also, there are multi-stories building on the very steep slopes. I will talk later on, we'll show some pictures also. Slope gradient is very high and landscape is fragile. About 20% of the city area has very high steep slopes gradient, about 20 to 30 degree. This slope gradient is there, and there are some locations like Chatla, Khatla, and Dutlang. They are located on the top of the ridge, and the slope gradient is very high in these 3 locations. The region has experienced 18 large devastated earthquakes with magnitude of average 7 in the Richter scale. So this region has also received during the in last 200 years. I have some data I will show you, and every year there are some tremors coming. We are observing tremors of 4 to 5 magnitude in Richter scale. So it makes the entire city vulnerable. There are more than 10 active landslide zones in the city. So when we talk about the disasters in Aizawl, there are 2 types of major disasters. One is earthquake and another is landslide. So it is highly prone to landslides because the landscape is very fragile. There were some major earthquakes, they have taken place in this, and they have affected the Aizawl city, like 10 January 1869, it was 7.4 magnitude intensity earthquake. 12 June 1897, it was 8.1 intensity Richter scale. 15 August 1950, it was 8.6 intensity, and then 8 July 1918, it was 7.6. 2 July 1930, it was 7.1. 6 July 1988, it was 7.2. So here you can see that all the earthquakes magnitude or intensity is more than 7, which is always devastating, particularly for the mountainous regions like Mizoram and Aizawl. So every year the city receives many earthquake tremors, sometime 2 or 3. Recently in 2013, there was earthquake took place in Manipur, and it has a huge impact on the Aizawl city. If you can see that this earthquake intensity map and these 3 circles in Northeast India, they have more than 8 to 8.7 magnitude earthquake. And Aizawl is just locating in between among these 3 points. So then it shows that Aizawl city is located in a very vulnerable landscape, highly vulnerable landscape. These are some examples of the Aizawl city. The first one is the south part of west part of Aizawl city, and you can see there are 2 circles. The red circles, they are showing that this landslide zones. And many times when there are cloud burst like situation or heavily downpour, these landslides occur. And many people, they are locating, their settlements are locating in the vulnerable areas. And during the rainy season, when there is heavily rainfall occur, the people living in these settlements close to these landslide prone areas, they never sleep. They change their that bed to the neighboring areas, but they still have their settlements in these very vulnerable areas. One of the important thing is that because the people, they want to live in the cities because there are some facilities, educational, institutional, so they don't want to go to the other areas in the urban regions. So some areas like this, and in many in the city, within the city, there are many landslides, very active landslide zones, and we can see in this the first photographs that the people still they have houses, and they are still staying in these houses. The second one figure, you can see that there are some actually the mismanagement by Aizawl Municipal Committee. The one, this 8 stories building below the road, and then in this steep slope hill, the Aizawl municipality has allotted this place for another owner to construct the house. So what happened in this area where the circle is, above that area also there is a very huge building of about 6-7 stories building. Below also 8 stories building. In between, the person, the owner will construct a building in between this area, and then because this all is very fragile and that's susceptible also. Whenever there is rain, the upper building will come down, will collapse, and also the lower building will also collapse. There are many examples in Aizawl when they are constructing a building between the 2 buildings in a very high or steep slope area, and whenever there is high rainfall, this all 3 buildings collapsed, and many instances are there in the past. So some areas I have told that in Khatla, one of the very vulnerable area, the road cracks on the road. And it was before the collapsing of that building. The second figure, you can see that building was completely collapsed. About 100-meter area was washed away in due course of time after I took this photograph. And then the government, this municipality has constructed one bridge in place of this. So because of all this instability of the land and fragility of landscape, this is taking place.
Sir, you're not audible.
There was, I think, some problem.
Okay.
Can you see my slide also?
Not now, sir.
Or I have slide is, you can
You have
see the
stopped
slide?
presenting, sir.
Okay. Actually, this is also the disaster in Aizawl. I am giving this presentation from my resident because I made a special arrangement. I cannot do this from my office because we have very poor connectivity in the office area. So this is one of the again problem in Aizawl city. Oh, again it is gone. Acha.
Sir, you
I think this slide, can you see slide?
no,
No,
no.
you're not presenting, sir.
Acha, okay, acha. So let me to go again. Yes, because of this, no? Because of this. Okay. Now it is seen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these areas are actually not suitable for construction of houses, but the municipality always allow to people even because they have within something this honor and them. So this you can see that also another place is densely populated. And this situation is same as highly fragile and not suitable for construction. And there are about 10 and 12 stories building located in this area. So this will have a future catastrophic situation. So the most vulnerable localities are there in the city. They are Hunter Bank, already 75 houses and a church have been evacuated. Sipui and Lai Puitang areas, 17 people killed, and in May 2013 due to the landslide. Ramnul area, 60 vulnerable houses have been already evacuated. So this situation is there. And in many places, the municipality is evacuating the people and the settlement from this area and resettling these people in other areas. Then I will talk about that the region of dense population on the ridge. Mainly you have seen all photographs and most of the settlements are on the ridge having steep slopes. The important point, one of the important point is that the Mizoram is known as the land of highlanders, and people want to live on the top of the ridge. Actually, top of the ridge means it is also comparatively climate is cool. And if you go downwards, climate will be hot, and then the people they like on the cool climate areas. Number one is this. And number second is that this constructing house on the top of the hills or the ridges is also the social status of the people, these Mizos people, because they are known as the highlanders. And they want to construct. So if any person who is rich and who has huge money, he always want to construct, and then it is all multi-stories. Even in the city, if there is a 6-7 stories building, you are living in the first story building, it means that you are poor. And the person who is living on the top, he is rich, like they have some social structure. Therefore, dense settlements are found on the ridge, and these ridges are always susceptible to huge landslides. So the question is that where is the space for making also this Aizawl city smart, because Aizawl city is also listed in the smart city program of the government of India. In this figure, you can see that the large crowd very small street, and everywhere, wherever you go in the city, you will find that even you don't, and every time, even it is rainy time or it is not rainy time, you will not find space to also go speedily in this area. So this is also the situation, and also I have already told you that how the number of the vehicles increasing day by day. It is 85% increase during the 6 years only. So what we can do to make Aizawl city smart? This is a question. So risk reduction is a pathway that can save the city areas. It is essential to stop the vertical expansion, and for horizontal expansion, proper site selection is required, keeping all the aspect related vulnerability in mind. So it is not required to construct 6-7 story buildings. Sometimes it is 10 stories also under this, that earthquake vulnerability area, zone 5th. So it will not be good. And also for expansion, this horizontal expansion, the city can be shifted to some, that the other areas, they are also called satellite towns. They can make some satellite towns wherever there are the space for constructing city. In the areas which are fragile and prone to landslides, there are already settlements constructed. The inhabitants should be rehabilitated to avoid future disasters. Aizawl Municipal Council has a greater role to resolve this impediment. No permission should be granted to any construction activities which is unplanned and which is being constructed on unstable slope. The satellite towns should be developed in the surroundings of the Aizawl city, with providing full infrastructure facilities and institutional facilities. And one important thing that I want to also, one article I wrote a long back, like this, the district and block headquarters can be developed, because the population density in rural areas, including the other district headquarters and the block headquarters, it is very less, because all people, they want to migrate to Aizawl city. So if we can provide that the facilities, institutional facilities, transportation, educational facilities, the other districts headquarters and block headquarters, then definitely the migration trend will less and the people will stay there, and the Aizawl city will get relief of this crowded population. In migration in Aizawl city, many face to overcrowding and sprawling of the city space related higher than the city's carrying capacity. Also very less, as I told you, that because roads are narrow, even water distribution system is very poor. So carrying capacity is very low in the Aizawl city, and the people living are very much. So this is making the city vulnerable to, that severe future catastrophe. It is the high time that the city planners and policymakers should study the situation and plan for sustainability of cityscape, so as to avoid all future catastrophe. Distribution, this deliberations, also there are many seminars and symposiums in the Aizawl, many times they are going on. Then these deliberations also, they will, and some writings, and also some suggestions to the state government, particularly the municipality, should be given, so that this will reduce this vulnerability of the city. So if you see this figure, this is just the west side of Aizawl city, between the Lengpui airport and Aizawl city. This is very ideal place, gentle slope. So if the city can be shifted slowly to this place, or the other places like this, as I told you that we can develop some satellite towns like these places. Definitely the, you know, that this we can escape the city from the future catastrophe. And there are many measures also in this city. It is very important that we have to go for the eco disaster risk reductions, and somewhere we need the structure measures also, because where we cannot go for eco disasters. One important slide, then I will stop my presentation. This is scenarios is one of the very important aspect for in the urban, particularly in the urban areas like Aizawl and other cities of the Himalayan regions. Scenario characterize a hypothetical state of system of the future. It shows a current scenario. Each scenario is the best guess or a forecast type of projection. So what we can do under this scenario is that identifying the driving forces, particularly in the places where settlements are located in a very vulnerable area. So we can identify these driving forces, and then we can also identify the critical uncertainties, what uncertainties may be in future, and then we can develop a possible scenario whether we have to rehabilitate these people from these vulnerable areas. So mainly in all these particularly three areas I mentioned in my presentation, they are located in highly vulnerable areas and densely populated. If we go for scenarios in this area for future forecast, whether these areas are suitable or not, then definitely we can escape the city for future catastrophe. And now I thank you very much for giving me this time, and because anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sati sir, for such a detailed presentation and bringing such information to the table. Tikendra sir, would you like to add any remarks or questions?
Yes, Kanika, I hope I am audible.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay, great. So thank you, Professor Vishambar Satiji. And it was really nice watching you and understanding more about Aizawl. But I have a basic problem with it, not with the presentation at all, but with one of your formulations. And actually, I'm quite anti-Malthusian theory. And, you know, when you brought in this concept that the intent of the native population to reproduce more, I think that goes against some of the historical reasons. It's not that Aizawl, the decadal growth, which was in 3-digit figure, but you, since you are in Aizawl, you jolly well know that it's post-independence when you had this strict migration control before independence. I mean, once open, that's the first phase where, you know, this huge influx took place. And the second is, I think, the insurgency. I mean, how can we just minus the whole question of those 2 decades from the 1966 to 86 period, where you had the largest decadal growth, and of course of the upgradation of hill council and, you know, merging of certain village panchayats. And since 1980s, we find the decadal growth is decreasing. So maybe either I missed that point, Professor Sati, or do you still stick? I mean, I don't think it's just the intent of the people to reproduce more children. I mean, that is something which is a little difficult for me to understand. Whereas historically, you know, we have reasons why, and that's how there are reasons for every town and city where migration has taken place. But yeah, overall, the presentation was excellent. I mean, the way you, and I think as well as that.
So, Tikendra sir, you're not audible. No, sir. No, sir. No. So you're not audible. Tikendra sir, you're not audible. Satish sir, would you like to respond to the previous question, the first question which he was raising?
Yes, okay, actually, this what I have shown in my presentation regarding this, the people attitude towards the more children is that it was not during the insurgency, because he was, Sri Kumarji was telling that during the insurgency, that situation is different. After the Aizawl, this Mizoram got statehood in 1987. Now the people are more aware for this minority kind of things, and they want to make their representation more. So these new things are coming. It is not during the insurgency or before that. So before that and during insurgency, they did not have such kind of mindset. But now people in the rural and urban areas, even the high earning people or low earning people, no matter, they have now coming up like to increase their what do you call this representation within the state and also the concept of having more children. That much I wanted to do.
Okay, sir. We will wait for Tikina sir to rejoin, but till then, there is a question on the Q&A box. So would you like to respond to that? Abhijit ji has asked, few years back, there was a landslide in Kodagu in Karnataka. One of the causes was construction of illegal resorts in slope of hills. Should the administration be accountable for giving license to illegal resorts, or can it be called a man-made disaster or act of God? Can government incentives such as insurance applicable to these assets or loss of life claim of insurance be valid?
Yes, this is very relevant question also here, and actually this is all man-made. Actually, when you are constructing the settlements or any resource in a vulnerable area, so it is all called man-made. And it is only the authority they are giving permission, because they may have some nexus, because now in many areas, not in India also, in other areas also, if you have nexus among yourself, so they are giving some permission, illegal permission also to construct. And it is the same situation is in Aizawl, because they people are the same community, and the brotherhood is there. And if you want to construct, they don't see the vulnerability or susceptibility aspect of the land, and they give the permission. So definitely this is a man-made problem. And also both even the person who is constructing, he knows that this is not good place. And also the authority, those are giving permission to them, both are responsible.
Okay, sir. Tikendra sir, Satish sir had responded to your question, the population part. Any other remarks you have or questions?
Maybe I'll get it through the text here. Can you hear me?
Very lightly, sir.
I don't know what is the problem. I've taken off my phone also.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Just go ahead. I mean, I suggest you go ahead with it. Are there no more questions? Now there are no more questions, I guess.
No, sir, no questions.
So is there any other speaker?
So actually,
yes, sir.
Actually, Pamarji, actually for your question, as you told that during this insurgency and before that, actually after this statehood, yes, Mizoram got statehood. Now the people of Mizoram are very particular to have their more representation. They feel they are now, because during insurgency, that was the different period. So now people are more aware, more educated, and this is very common in the city and rural areas also. They have their own perception. I have many friends, they say like this. So this I took, and then therefore the growth rate is very high also in Mizoram.
The data speaks otherwise. That's my point, Professor. The data speaks otherwise. It shows a negative growth since post-1980s. Not a negative growth, a decrease in decadal growth.
Yeah.
Right from 103% to 40% now. Of course, 40% is fairly high, but still, yeah.
Yes. Growth rate is low, you are right. But in comparison to other parts of India, the population increase is very high. That is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satish sir, for your information and valuable insights. Next, we invite Dr. Gopal Verma to make certain announcements. And for a short presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I believe the time is really less, so I will try to be very quick. So can you see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so thank you very much, all the organizers, IMPRI and NIDM both, for giving me this platform to share my thoughts. So today, very quickly, I would like to highlight this project that NIDM and IIT Indore has been carrying out, and it is almost completed. So this is multi-hazard disaster risk and resilience. We have tried to develop a few scorecards for selected 4 cities of India, and we have tried to develop a step-by-step guide for the urban local bodies to develop resilience against the disasters. So in our previous as our previous speakers, and especially Mr. Pandey, Professor Pandey sir has emphasized upon how important the role of ULBs is there in the management of disasters. So we all are very well aware of the risk at which India is there, and so many lives that are going every day because of the natural disasters, especially drought, flood, heat waves. In fact, this year heat wave is has been very prominent. So when we want to talk about the cities, so almost 56% of Indian urban spaces, Indian smart cities are vulnerable to natural disasters, and we can see a few instances when there had been notable flood incidences in Visakhapatnam, Guwahati, Srinagar, and so on and so forth. And they all have led to such massive economic losses in the past, and it's continuing to be there. So what actually motivated us to conduct this kind of study and carry out the study? So obviously there was an insufficient observational and scientific information database that was available specifically at the city levels. Then there was also inadequate knowledge on the impact of disasters on different sectors. Then this is the most important part, that there is no tool that is there with the help of which we can measure the disaster risk and resilience, especially for a city. We have a national disaster management plan for our entire country. The disaster management plans for states is there, and most of the places it is under process. DMPs for ministries is under process. In fact, NIDM is supporting that also, but particularly at the city level, no such tool, no such scorecard kind of thing is there. So that's what we have tried to develop with the help of the study. And lastly, absence of risk information conveying platform at city level is also not there. So all these inspired us to conduct this study. So these 4 objectives were the main things that were there in this study. So first of all, we wanted to prepare the urban local bodies. We want to supplement them with the step-by-step guide so that they are very well aware like which kind of cities, which kind of disasters these cities are more vulnerable to, and what are the steps that they will have to follow to, first of all, to build the resilience and prepare their disaster management cycle, all the 5 hours there. Then next, we have tried to quantify the risk of disasters, and we have tried to come up with a disaster risk index for these cities. Then we have tried to quantify the resilience level of these cities, and we have come up with this disastrous resilience index. And above all, we have tried to do a performance assessment of these cities. So you can see here we have selected these 4 cities in this study: Srinagar, Jaipur, Guwahati, and Visakhapatnam. So there was a purpose of considering these cities, as Srinagar is Srinagar and even Guwahati also, they are hilly terrain, and the problems of avalanches, landslides, earthquakes are more prominent in these areas. Then Jaipur is a plain area, but more heat wave kind of incidences are there. Then Visakhapatnam is a coastal city. So we have tried to cover all the major hazards, particularly that are there in these cities. So this was our methodology to bring out this kind of multi-hazard disaster scorecard for these 4 cities. And we have come up with these 2 kinds of disaster risk scorecard and disaster resilience scorecard for these 4 cities. So these were the various hazards, the 14 hazards that were listed in the, we have considered as indicators to prepare this disaster risk index. Then we have considered these 13 vulnerability aspects. Then we have considered these 2 exposure indicators. So it's very important to understand that not all indicators are equally important at all the cities. So for some cities, earthquake is more prominent, that more incidences are there. But for like for example in Srinagar, there are more possibilities of avalanches, whereas in Jaipur there is no any chances for this kind of hazard. So that's why proper weightage. I think somebody is on mute.
The government of India.
It will be better. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So it's done. It's done now. So yeah, so not equal, but different weightages have been given to these hazards and these indicators, and on the basis of this, we have tried to develop this scorecard. So this was about developing the disaster risk index, disaster risk scorecard, and these are the indicators and parameters we have considered to develop the disaster resilience index of that particular city. So to the state government departments, we have asked these 172 questions. So majorly 7 aggregate indicators we have considered, and in these, all these indicators were there, which will very clearly take us to the conclusion that which kind of like how where they stand when it comes to the resilience for that particular city. So this is a rough methodology of just one moment.
The background noises are more than your voices.
Yeah, I've conveyed.
Yeah.
So yes, so this is we have also tried to find out a composite disaster risk index for a particular city. So see, when there are numbers where we are very clearly able to see that where that particular parameter, where that particular indicator stands, like, so for example, when we say the temperature is high, it doesn't mean anything. When we say the temperature is 49.5 degrees Celsius, we are talking in terms of numbers, and that makes us more clear that, okay, so this is the actual situation. So with the help of this study, we have also tried to do the same. We have tried to give the cities a number, one number which will, which will tell about the entire, disaster risk, disaster resilience system of that particular city. So we have tried to identify that. So here you can see this is the disaster risk index. So these are the 14 disasters, and for all cities you can see here we have tried to find out their indices in terms of various hazards. And for most of the instances, you can see that Jaipur is having drought, heat, somewhat in terms of cold wave also, then industrial hazards, lightning hazards. So Jaipur is almost having these kind of, you can say even 10, number 10 is given to fire hazard index for Jaipur as again. So the coastal disasters obviously are not existing in all the other cities, hence only Visakhapatnam has been considered and given this kind of number. So these numbers that we are seeing here that have come up with a very detailed study, and that's how we have come to these numbers. Now, these is the 13 vulnerability indices and the exposure indices we have come up. So since time is very less, so I'm quickly going through this. So with the help of these three indices, hazard, vulnerability, and exposure indices, we have come up with a composite disaster index for the cities. And you can see here that the highest composite disaster risk index has been assigned to Vizag. And this implies that the Vizag is the most vulnerable to disasters. Then on the second number is the Jaipur, then Guwahati, and then Srinagar. So although we are still trying to refine our studies, we are still in the process. So far our results have so far the data we have received and the questionnaires we have received from the state departments, we have come to this conclusion so far, but still we are trying to refine the study. So far the order of indices that we could find was this. So once the study is completed, this can be multiplied, this can be translated for other urban local bodies, for other smart cities as well, so that they can also develop this kind of composite disaster risk index. They can also develop a disaster scorecard for their own city and a step-by-step guide for what particularly that city, the steps that city has to take when it comes to disaster and when it comes to the preparedness or response system. So that was all from my side. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gopal Verma. Tikendra sir, do you have any remarks?
No, nothing, just one, Dr. Koppal. How do you draw this matrix? Take for example, in the I call the hierarchy of disasters, says Simla, where you do not have an avalanche, but where you have snow and snow-related disasters, when your electricity goes out, water is not supplied, and even if you reach, and then this further leads to landslides, etc. So how do you bring in this the scope into the matrix? Take for example a coastal city. So in a coastal city is it related to the prospective loss of lives, assets? So how do you draw this matrix? Because there has to be some scientific basis.
Yes, sir.
And then you bring that hierarchy.
Yes, sir. So the moment I mentioned the 14 kind of hazards and 13 kind of vulnerabilities that we have considered. So in those, we have given the weightages as per the city, as per the past events. We have gone through the 20 years data from the 20 years of the past incidences, and on the basis of that we have given a proper weightage to a particular hazard for that particular city. So for example, tsunami incidences are not possible in Srinagar area. So for that particular tsunami hazard has given a weightage of 0. So that's how we have included in the matrix. So obviously in the final, the mathematical.
No, Dr. Gopal, my point is, see, this is pertaining to your 20 years of, when you enumerate those incidents. That's a separate matter. My point is, in the matrix, how do you draw it? For example, is it to the total accumulative loss of lives, the hierarchy, or assets? So how do you draw that matrix? Is it just 20 years and then you create, a future plan? Okay, so if 20 years down the line, this is what has happened, this is going to happen in the future.
So actually, sir, this is a very complex mathematical model that we have used into it. I'm not sure I will be able to explain to it in such short time. But sir, this report is going to be available within next 2 to 3 months to everybody. And in fact, the detailed in this,
My
in
point
which
is,
all
when
the
you draw this algorithm, if it's an algorithm or is it manual, that has to be the basic premise for drawing a matrix.
Yes,
the premise
yes.
has to be the loss of lives, assets, and of course, the incidence of the vulnerability. That is, yeah, great.
Yes, sir. So it is there. A proper algorithm has been designed, and that's how we have come up. In which we have considered all exposure, as you have talked, vulnerability, hazard. So all these have been combined together and been assessed. So a proper algorithm is there, but you will be able
Let
to
me cite an example to you. Okay, now since we've engaged into this discussion, now because of very strong early warning systems, and if there's a cyclone, you may have a situation where the total loss of the assets would be huge, and maybe your loss of lives would be minimal, not even one person dying. Okay, but at the same time, there's another incident where all of a sudden you have this heavy snowfall, and you have a building collapsing where 20 people die under that. So how do you match these two? This would be very interesting for me to know when you draw this. Yeah, okay.
Sure, sir. Sure. I will aid you with the our final reports that we come up with. So I hope it will be clear to you. Thank you so much.
So Kanika, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I would request you to give the concluding remarks for this session for today.
Arjun, do that here. Where is Dr. Arjun? He's just having a back seat, huh?
No, sir. Friends, but sir, you can summarize all the session and key takeaways for all the participants.
Very interesting, and also very informative, educative 3-day workshop. And probably there are 2 important lessons, not too many, maybe many more. And one that we just drew from our from one of our presenters from Kerala, whereby a national workshop would be held in exploring ways of mainstreaming the disaster risk reduction plans with the master plans that are to be drawn. How they are doing it, let's have this as a future task out of this workshop. That was very interesting. And I think also where we just worked out with WRI, maybe to have some more interactive discussions on, something very concrete. Take, for example, creating those bicycle lanes and bringing in different aspects of and different stakeholders to one platform or one forum, so that it's a win-win situation for everyone. But here's a comment that I want to make, and this comment was posted to me on the WhatsApp. And this is not, so this was like, the person found our discussion very interesting, very informative. And the person said that, but there is very less awareness. Not many people use Facebook anymore. So I know that's how I know this discussion is happening. Many are not aware. So, and then this subject should be taught in the schools. Of course, maybe in some states it is being taught. And there should be more awareness for the kids and youngsters. So Arjun probably will have to work out these plans with maybe those who are going to colleges and other institutions. And one can make how many ever plans and documents for climate change, but if people continue to abuse the environment, nothing is going to happen. That's fine. Climate change should be taught from standard 1 till colleges, and should be a poll issue. I mean, that's very interesting that it should become a poll issue. It's like we are just treating the symptom and not the disease. So I think this is a very interesting comment that was posted, which means that actually there is some churning that is taking place, and it is not meant just for our participants who are there. I think almost 600 participants registered. So off and on, we've had 200 coming in, going out. So, so overall, I would say that from the city's perspective, I think this was one of the innovative workshops that we have held, whereby we were able to bring in some of the people who are into praxis, and also who are into theory formulations when our national and state level plans are being made. Having said that, I think because that's what my domain is, I think this is just minuscule. This is just a tip of an iceberg. There's a lot more that needs to be done. And probably this is just a catalyst, just an initiation that we want to do. Because, yes, rightly pointed out, actually, this has to be made an issue for the elections, for the polls, an issue whereby we grapple, and we do not just keep it for the elite or for the civil society organizations, but it should be part and parcel of our everyday life, because climate change is impacting us. It is impacting us in economic terms. It is impacting us in geographical terms. In fact, migration is also related to most of the climate-related changes that we are witnessing. I mean, there are historical evidences for that. I do not have to go into all those evidences. So the point is that I think there's something concrete that has come up, but I think far more we have to work on it. And thank you, IMPRI, for taking this initiative, and the National Institute of Disaster Management for taking the lead and organizing this workshop. I think this has been a very insightful one. And probably, Arjun, if you could just bring out in the textual form and maybe compile it in a form of a booklet or something of the sort, because there have been very interesting presentations right from the first to the last one. I think that will be a great source of material for our people, for our young people, to really grapple, to really understand these issues. And I think, though I'm always considered to be someone who is very critical of the system, I am, no doubt about that. But at the same time, I think there have been some very interesting stories as well. And else, what we are witnessing is today is 25th of May. So I think 10 days down the line, we have the World Environment Day coming up. That's June 5. And the theme, correct me if I'm wrong, is Only One Earth. And this is a kind of unprecedented crisis in our historical evolution of humankind. I do not have to go into the genesis, because that's what it has been pointed out. We have reports and reports flooded with data. I mean, if you go into the IPCC report, more than 3,000 pages, I don't know who's going to read that. But actually, it's a great compilation of the data. But it's screaming, actually, it's screaming at us. How do we respond to that? And how do we respond? And that's what I said in the beginning. It's not just my behavior, which is very important, but it is behavior of the collective and the state. I think that is where this intervention has to happen. And that is where we have to take this agenda further, making it a people's issue, so that the people are part and parcel of this entire paradigm of discourse. And thank you so much. I think, Arjun, that would be more than enough for me to say. But yeah, I think it's been very lovely 3 days, and many more to come. Over to you, Kanika and Arjun.
So one come from Professor Hina Zia, it is for you. Can this become an election manifesto anytime soon? So specifically.
Yes, in fact, this should become an election manifesto. And if you see, but election manifestos, if you see some of the election manifestos, because I was engaged into creating some of them, I mean, working on some of them. So I see that there is a reference to it, but apart from reference, there's nothing more on it. So I think it's more to do with day-to-day engagement, where these issues are linked, are inked into the fact of our day-to-day life, into our discourse that we build, and it's not really a great Herculean task. It's not rocket science. I mean, the way Kerala is doing, now trying to mainstream all that into their planning process. I think that's what needs to be done. But yes, election manifesto definitely, and that's what we need to. Even if you see some of the election manifestos of major political parties, national political parties, there is a word on climate change. It's not that there is not a word, but what actually happens is something very, very realistically what we need to understand, and that is the gap that exists between election manifesto and the actual reality, which I mentioned, if I may recollect, on the first day, what the Labour Party in England, though they lost, brought to the fore whole discourse of how climate change impact and what should be the green discourse for the national economy, for the national development plan, and whereby they took a very extremist position, by the way, and this is what I need to reiterate, that all those companies that do not perform on the basis of, say, A, B, C, D, E, what they should, with respect to climate change, should be forbidden from trading in the stock market. I mean, that's a completely extremist position. I do not know, but that came from the political discourse. This kind of discussion and discourse is something that we are completely missing in the Indian political paradigm and the Indian political scenario. So maybe more and more needs to be done, but also not to lose hope, Arjun, because when Trump walked out from the Paris deal, I know some of the mayors. I mean, Mayor Applebaum from Boulder City, Colorado. He's another good friend. I mean, we were together in Paris, and he said, "Don't worry. I mean, he walks out, but we as city leaders, we will be there." And actually, it's the push from those city leaders that happened in US, and you have now the new Green Deal. I mean, how good or bad is a separate matter, but yeah, I mean, they are back to that fact. So I think it's a long way to go, but definitely we in the third world, I mean, we have to be more cautious about adaptability, about protecting our lives, about preserving our assets, because that is where the greatest loss is going to happen.
Thank you, sir. So now we'll have some feedback and certificate related announcement. Karnika, we can go to Dr. Sweta.
Yes, sir. Dr. Shweta Baidedas, I invite you to provide the certificate related announcements.
Thank you so much, Kanika. So I would like to remind all the participants once again that if you have participated this program for more than 80% of the total time of 3 days, then you are eligible to receive your certificates. But please make sure that when you are going to download your certificate, you surely fill the feedback form, and this is a must because this feedback form only will make you eligible for downloading your certificate. And the name that you have registered or the name that you have mentioned while participating in this program, that similar name will come into your certificate. So before you claim that you have joined for the entire meeting and you didn't receive the certificate, please check that whether you fulfill all these criteria because otherwise you will not be able to download your certificates. And if you face any problem after meeting all this, then definitely you can contact with our training cell. They will help you out in getting your certificate. But if you have not participated for more than 80% of the time, then we are sorry, it will not be possible for us to give you your certificate. And one more thing I would like to remind you, that we do not do anything in this certificate thing. Everything is system generated. We can only upload your attendance, that's all. So if you are present, then you will receive a certificate, provided you fill up the feedback form. That's all from my side. Thank you so much, Karnika.
Thank you, Dr. Shweta, ma'am. As you've come to the end of last day of the 3-day online training program, I, Karnika Arun, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to formally propose the vote of thanks. The topic in discussion was making Indian cities disaster and climate change resilient towards responsive and actionable urban planning, policy and development, organized by IMPRI and NIDM. I would like to thank the patron of the session, Shri Taj Hassan, our conveners, Anil K. Gupta, Dr. Sumi Mehta, Tikender Singh Panwar, and Dr. Soumyadip Chattopadhyay. We are grateful to our distinguished set of experts who made the session extremely informative and insightful. I would like to thank Professor Chetan Vaidya, Himanshu Shekhar, Professor Savanik Roy, Professor V.P. Sati, Dr. Madhu Verma, Dr. Joy Elamon, Samir Unhale, Professor K.K. Pandey, and Vidoshati Sadhu Khan. Thanks to the organizing team, Dr. Shweta Vaidyadas, Dr. Gopal Verma, Fatima Amin, and Harshit Sharma, NIDM, Utkarsh Dwivedi, Diya Goswami, Karnika Arun, and Riya Shah from IMPRI for conducting the whole session in a smooth manner. Thanks to our moderator, Tikender Singh Panwar, for carrying out the whole session with insightful remarks and questions. Thanks to all our participants who have raised questions and participated actively throughout the session. We are thankful if you're watching us now on Facebook Live or later on YouTube. We welcome you to, I hope, you continue to tune into our future web policy talks and IMPRI's web policy learning. Thank you all. Have a good day.